Welcome to Bloomers in the Garden. I'm Len Schroeder.
And I'm Julio Zamora.
The Philadelphia Flower Show is back at the Philadelphia Convention Center March 4th through the 12th.
The Philadelphia Flower Show is the nation's largest and the world's longest-running horticultural event.
On today's show, we have a special guest with us, Seth Pearsoll. Seth is the creative director of the Philadelphia Flower Show.
Over the next hour, we are going to get to know Seth and see where he is from and how he got into the horticultural business.
The theme of this year's Philadelphia Flower Show is The Garden Electric. Seth will share all of the highlights for this year's show.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back in the garden with Seth Pearsoll right after these messages. Bloomers in the Garden is brought to you each week by Bloomers Home and Garden Center. Bloomers is an award-winning garden center just 20 minutes from Philadelphia. Bloomers has been providing expert advice turning brown thumbs green for over 30 years. At Bloomers, we want you to ask us every question, even if you think it's silly. We share information in a friendly, non-judgmental way that is meant to teach and spread the joy of gardening. Visit Bloomers Home and Garden Center in Washington Township, Gloucester County. For directions, go to bloomers.com, and we'll see you in the garden.
Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. Fertilum's azalea and evergreen food plus systemic insecticide 915-3 contains 5 micronutrients which are designed for azaleas and evergreens to provide the proper nutrients and producing stunning green leaves and essential new growth while protecting the plant from damaging insects for up to 8 weeks. Fertilum's azalea and evergreen food contains 9% nitrogen for green growth, building bigger stems and leaves, 15% phosphorus for root growth and increased flower production, 13% potash to promote vigorous growth so plants are better able to resist disease and cold. The micronutrients are the icing on the cake to enhance further growth, strengthen, and beautify color. Tired of seeing your plants prematurely drop their leaves, the flowers disappear? Fertilum's Azalea Evergreen Food plus Systemic Insecticide 915-13 contains an easy-to-apply insecticide that keeps your azaleas and evergreens looking great all year long. Those hungry insects do not have a chance. Apply in spring before buds sprout and continue throughout the season as indicated on the label growing guide. Fertilum's Azalea and Evergreen Food plus Systemic Insecticide 915-13 with micronutrients is a must for the passionate azalea and evergreen grower to help produce that beautiful abundance of color and fantastic fragrance everyone will love. So next time you visit your favorite garden center, pick up Fertilum's Azalea and Evergreen Food plus Systemic and expect to have the best looking shrubs in the neighborhood. You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or hear us on the radio each weekend. Every Saturday morning, Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley, first at 8 a.m. on Talk 860 WWDB and again at 9 a.m. on AM 800 WTMR. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard through the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies 1250 AM WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden. Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. Seth, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
happy to be here. This is exciting.
I'm glad. You're an interesting man. You're from the Midwest.
Yes.
How did you get involved in, I'm going to just say the general nursery? Like you have the dream job, you know?
Yeah,
you realize that, don't you?
I think so. I do after the show is over. Right now it's all terror and anxiety.
Yeah. That's right.
And afterwards it's great.
That's right.
For sure.
That's right. That black tie event, someday I'm going to go.
Right.
I'm going to go. So tell me about yourself. How did you, first of all, I guess the way that things are laid out. You were a garden center manager before you went to school. Is that correct?
Yep.
Wow.
From where was it? I mean, I know the store. Tell me a little about that experience and how did you end up going for linguistics?
So really, really funny. Let's go all the way back.
Wow.
I come from a family of farmers, and these are not boutique farmers. This is 6,000-7,000 acres in,
Oh my gosh.
in Kansas. So my whole family's from Western Kansas.
Okay.
And it's pretty rural. If I still go back home to see my
Do I have to bring up
grandmother's
the Super Bowl?
Well, no, I'm an Eagles fan. I've been out here for a long time. I'm an Eagles fan. My whole family are Chiefs fans.
See, Aaron, it happens.
So I couldn't believe what I was watching on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I think somebody had pointed out to me that land use has been in my family for generations, a relationship with the land in some form or another. And this was a connection that was made to me at a bar one night many years ago. This kind of mystic woman approached me, and she was like, wait, so how did you get into this? It's been in your family for years. And she had sort of revealed it to me, and I was like, oh, that is true. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I grew up, my mom was a garden enthusiast.
Okay.
And, the backyard, all of my best memories were kind of this idyllic space. And I'd love to look at it now with my design eyes to see if it matches up with the image in my head. That would be a fun exercise.
Awesome.
But the other thing that's kind of unexpected, the real way that I got into landscape was actually through being an English major.
Really?
Yeah, so I was an English major as an undergrad. I was really big into writing and literature and poetry growing up. And, I was like, what is making these moments so special? If a writer is writing about something and they're framing the scene, that means there are these things that are appealing to the scene. And I started researching all of these, I got into, geological terms, and I got into weather terms because my dad was into these things as well.
Sure. I mean,
it was
it's
sort
going
of
to rain. It's crisis.
It was more like, there are all of these passive things in our world that you go by and affect your mood or your well-being more than you might think. And pretty soon, garden and landscape became sort of like the medium through which to affect that. And I was like, well, actually, this is one area where you're placemaking or environment making or sequencing these things for people. I didn't know any of this stuff at the time, but as I was going through books that I was reading, the stuff that was standing out to me would be a passive setting whereby you would have, I called them golden moments when I was in high school and junior high, because I was like, there are these moments that stick out, and what is it about them? Maybe there's a fragrance in the air, the sunlight is beautiful, maybe you're in a lovely setting or you're sitting down. So anyway, that's when I started paying attention to landscape.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
It's really deep. My golden moments were usually Coors, Budweiser.
I mean, you probably
had something to do with that.
You were probably around a fire. You were in a good setting, right? Your environment was definitely
it got
helping
better
that.
the longer the night went.
Sure. So I worked at that hardware store for like 10 years. From 16, I eventually moved, ended up in Iowa. We'll talk about that, but I continued that job there. So, I was there which is a long time for a 16 or a 15-year-old to start and keep a job for that long.
Wow.
Like from experience, we have had great employees that start when they're like 16 years old, go to college. Like we're right near Rowan College.
Yeah.
They go to Rowan, and that by the time they graduate, they've been with us for 6-7 years. And then they graduate, and it's like, how are we going to live without them?
Can't get rid of them, and we can't live without you. What are we going to do? So that's a little bit of how I sort of started to see landscape and pay attention to it. I had a botany teacher in high school who was kind of like my mentor as well. Not because he liked plants, but he was just a cool dude. And, he was into plants. And I started to sort of like make my way into plants because he would show me things or help me see things in a different light, which would become sort of a big theme in my life. But
so was your high school, like a rural school where a lot of farming kids went to, or was it?
No,
different?
surprisingly not. It was I was in Lincoln, Nebraska. So my family's from Kansas. We moved to Lincoln. My mom worked in a hospital, so she got a job there. And the school that I went to, Lincoln, is a pretty interesting place. It's I forget what the proper terminology. It receives there's a university there, and then it receives many refugees. It's like the quality of life is such that it's a great place for refugees to start. So my school, it was pretty large, over 2,000 people in my high school. Wow. My graduating class was, I don't know, probably 700.
Wow, it's huge.
Wow.
Which is pretty big. You wouldn't expect that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other cool thing was my school had a lot more diversity than you might think for a Midwestern school, because we had so many different refugees at my school. Right. So you got to sort of just interact with, we had a big Vietnamese population, Cambodian, Sudanese, Middle Eastern population.
Right.
So
right in the middle of the country.
you would never think it,
No.
but
Yeah,
it's a Lincoln High. Shout out to Lincoln High.
About that.
Yeah.
So pretty cool high school at the time.
Very awesome. Wow. We're going to learn more about your education experience. That's quite a journey.
It is.
From Lincoln, Nebraska to Massachusetts. And, when Aaron and I were talking, it's like, oh, well, it's like we go where the money is. And I'm going to ask about that. I
was following something, but it wasn't the money.
Yeah. Most of the time in this industry, it usually isn't.
Right.
We'll be right back to talk about that with Seth right after these messages. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. Some of our most frequent questions revolve around organic container gardening for houseplants, annuals, and of course, vegetables. Coast of Maine's Bar Harbor Blend organic potting soil is a lightweight soil mixture made with salmon, blueberry, lobster, and other composts, as well as calcium and chitin-rich lobster shells, sphagnum peat, perlite, and kelp meal. It is a great soil. And Coast of Maine's Bar Harbor organic potting soil is rich in organic material, creating lush, disease-resistant plants that require less watering, less feeding. Its rich, dark brown color provides the perfect balance between water retention and drainage needed for healthy plants. Coast of Maine's Bar Harbor Blend organic potting soil is available at these local retailers: Pickering Valley Feed and Farm, Exton, PA; Ashcombs Farm and Greenhouses, Mechanicsburg, PA; Sickles, Little Silver, New Jersey. Your next houseplant is waiting for you in Bloomers Home and Garden Center's greenhouse. Bloomers recognizes that houseplant choices are as important to your interior decorating as the fabric on your couch. The right plant, paired with the perfect container, can bring a dynamic change to your home. A houseplant brings life to your world and connects your home's interior to the greater outdoors. Even a small succulent placed on your coffee table has a way of connecting your living room to the Amazon rainforest. How about an air plant in your kitchen? Looking for an indoor flowering plant to add color to your plant palette? Bloomers has a large revolving assortment of flowering beauties. From aglaonemas to ZZ plants, Bloomers Greenhouse is stocked with your next favorite indoor plant. Bloomers carries a large selection of pottery and containers to match your home's decor and make any of your plants more beautiful. Bloomers experts can help you care for your plants and have the fertilizer, insecticides, leaf shine, and specialty soils you need to grow healthy and happy indoor plants. Visit Bloomers Home and Garden Center's greenhouse and make every room in your home a living room. Visit bloomers.com for more information. That's bloomers.com, and we'll see you in the garden. You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or hear us on the radio each weekend. Every Saturday morning, Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley, first at 8 a.m. on Talk 860 WWDB, and again at 9 a.m. on AM 800 WTMR. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard through the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies, 1250 a.m. WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden.
Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. We're talking with Seth Pearsoll, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society's creative director of the Philadelphia Flower Show. Seth, following your education track, you went to University of Nebraska for English and Latin American Studies. Now, in 2007, you went to the University of Iowa for your master's in linguistics. While you were there, you taught intermediate Portuguese to students as well as studying Hispanic linguistics. Wow, that's an amazing feat right there, my friend.
Yes, it was very different than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, very
Impressive
different.
for a garden center manager.
Sure, right, yeah.
So, first of all, you were working at a garden center,
Yeah,
right?
working at a garden center.
And I know the garden center. The name of the garden center is?
It's Menards, big chain in the Midwest, a big competitor to Home Depot. At the time, It was solidly Midwest. And later on in my career, I was a creative director at a different firm, and I was in the room pitching to one of the founders of Home Depot. And he paused, and he said, wait, Menards? He said, let me tell you something. I've went up against a lot of competitors, and I've taken a lot of people down, but he said I could never take down John Menard, and he's a hell of a competitor. And I thought that was pretty interesting to hear these two industry people sort of like. So
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah, so big box store garden center in the Midwest is the takeaway.
Then how, not horticulture school, how did you get, you said that the diversity in Lincoln was such. How did you decide to go into Latin American studies?
So pretty interesting story. So in college, I, as many people do, took a language course. I studied Spanish, was working on finishing my degree in English, and really had no idea what my next steps were. I had some ideas, but I didn't know about landscape architecture. I didn't know about landscape design. So it wasn't on my radio for that reason. And that the teacher, my mentor that I mentioned, was going to Mexico to live for a little bit. And he said, I need somebody to house sit for me and be gone for a year. So I used that opportunity, saved up, and kind of at the tail end, I was in a rough place in life. And I said, you know what? I had been to Brazil previously on vacation.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And I sort of bought a ticket in the middle of the night. I told the absolute minimum number of people I was going. I told my mom. Wow. I told a handful of people, and I needed a life change.
Okay.
So I went to Brazil for a while and spent several months in Brazil. The first time I was there, I was disappointed. They speak Portuguese. So I was eager to test out my Spanish. Obviously, they don't speak Spanish, but I spent every day with flashcards learning my Portuguese verbs. And I just had an aptitude for it because, by the end of it, I wasn't speaking great, but I was interacting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Right?
amazing.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And especially you're young.
I was young. Now I feel not young, right? And I had dated a Brazilian.
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Truth be told,
There's a connection there.
he wasn't following.
Right.
Yeah. You were following something.
Yeah, but that was after Brazil.
Right.
I became infatuated with the culture and the language and the people.
Yeah.
And, but when I had gone to Brazil that third time, I left out a second time as well. I was no longer with her. I was, single, and I needed a change.
Right.
But the reason I'm focusing on that is because on the flight back, there was an incident. We had just left São Paulo, heading back to Chicago, and all of a sudden there was like, a bang, a jolt, an explosion. The airline shook.
Wow.
The lights went out. They popped back on. I made an announcement, and we went back to Guarulhos, the airport.
Wow.
And we had to stay overnight there. I would later find out that one of the engines either blew up or blew out because there was flames. However, at the process of reboarding and re-entering, they divided up the foreigners and the Brazilians. So I would have been a foreigner because I was American. And in that line, there was a professor from the University of Iowa in the linguistics group who heard me speaking Portuguese and said, wait, your Portuguese is really good. You don't have an American accent. You sound like, at the time, very well, accented Brazilian Portuguese. So he started talking to me, got to know me, and was talking me into coming to the linguistics program at the University of Iowa, which was a top 10 program for that particular field.
Really?
Yeah, and it was only because of that serendipitous interaction of, having to turn around, reboard, and then flying back out the next day that I got to meet, Jason. And
incredible.
And that's how I ended up at the University of Iowa.
Is that something?
Yeah, teaching Portuguese.
I would have still been freaked out from the whole plane thing. Don't talk to me.
Well, the funny thing
amazing.
is, I didn't know it, but Jason happened to be sitting on the side next to the engine.
Really?
So that's the only way I know that it was significant and didn't just think it was an electrical thing.
Right.
Because Jason was like, oh my gosh, I saw this. I can't believe what I just saw.
Amazing.
Yeah, so pretty interesting.
It is interesting.
So that's how I ended up in Iowa.
3 years between you graduated from Nebraska.
Yep.
Right? And then it was a 3-year time frame before you went to Iowa.
Probably about that, maybe a little bit less, about 3
Okay.
years, maybe 2.5 roughly.
Okay.
Because I house sat for a year. I went to Brazil for a little while and then, got the admissions process to Iowa, and then I moved to the University of Iowa.
How was your mom about all this? I mean,
My mom is a pretty, what should I say? It was a childhood full of chores and work, very much work oriented. And if you got your work done, I didn't drink or smoke or party. So my mom had a really high level of trust. Okay. So, she was like, as long as you're getting your things done, this is your chore list. If it's done, I don't care what you do. Just keep me posted. You have the good judgment. So that ethos kept on, Mom, I'm heading to Latin America.
I think
see you on the other side.
It makes a difference when kids travel.
Yeah.
And even though as a dad, I'm pretty, I've got 3 kids and they're all grown, but they all did except for Carl. Carl did not do it, my youngest. But my other 2 did, where they went when they were young, like elementary school to they went to England, they went to France, and they did they just learn different cultures young. And I think that it makes such a difference and an impact to say, when you're not stuck, but with you, all as you know is America, the United States, and our culture. Yeah. It kind of like, I noticed they thought differently.
Sure.
Than, even myself. So
yeah, it's interesting to be transformed, which we'll also get into that, because that little transformation you're talking about is a big part of today and maybe even this year's flower show.
Yeah,
so,
and even my fiance Danielle, like Brett, you've met. Right. Brett was actually here when we were taping the show one time. He went to Germany, and like he's still keeping up with his language and everything else. He plans on going back. So
amazing.
All right, so then Iowa, you were at Iowa for a time.
I was at Iowa for a time. Linguistics is one of those things that is great to talk about at a cocktail party. But when you get really into the academic linguistics, it's hard, it's dry, it's almost like math.
Is it like a science kind of thing?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
And, at the time I had just come back from Brazil. So this wasn't just linguistics. This was Hispanic linguistics. So this was, all Spanish and not just Spanish. This is like, let's suss out the differences in Chilean dialects in certain regions. And my Spanish was not at that level, although I was good at faking it. But there's a thing that happens where, when you have some of the Romance languages, particularly Spanish and Portuguese, I was really struggling because I was fresh out of that language and it was supposed to be based in Spanish. So I struggled because it was just a twist in the brain.
And Julio, you're bilingual, and we've talked about how different dialects and the nuances between, yes, it's Spanish, but it's not like you're from Cuba, so totally your Spanish is different than someone from Mexico or someone
or even from Spain. The Catalan is totally different.
Totalmente diferente. Mi esposa es dominicana.
Oh, sí.
Sí, entonces yo aprendí no usa mi S o mi R y todo
Sí.
es que lo que monstruo, que lo que esa vaina, cosas así.
Sí.
Y yo tengo
There you
una
go.
hija.
Una hija.
Y una
Está
hija que ella va a
going, Aaron?
aprender español
¿Sabe
también. Sí, well, todavía no, porque
Todavía no.
solamente tiene 1 año.
Un año. Ahora se empieza.
Sí, sí. Y tengo una colombiana que vive conmigo también.
sí, qué bueno.
Entonces ella está hablando colombiano,
Oh.
dominicano,
Qué
and that's
bueno.
it. Did I pass the
Qué lindo.
Spanish test?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
did
Got
it
it?
pass, Julio?
Perfect.
Yeah, all right.
Bien, bien.
On the sly, I told Julio, just see how much, you know. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
Pretty cool.
Marrying a Dominican Republican woman is very nice.
Yeah, I mean, they speak so darn fast.
Oh, they do.
Oh,
I noticed that.
Some days I'm like, Tomas, I don't even know what you're saying right now, man.
I know a Colombian gentleman I just met about a month ago. He speaks so fast, I had to tell him, slow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Despacio, por
Yes,
favor.
por favor.
Yeah, por favor, despacio.
Right.
But funnily enough, I do feel like Latin America, particularly our Spanish-speaking, fans and partners, that is something I am looking to bring. I mean, there's so many growers in Colombia and
Yeah.
Ecuador,
Yeah.
Right.
Florida. I'm in Florida every year buying and
yeah.
tagging
Yeah.
plants. And
Just got back from Tampa.
oh, really?
So yeah,
Amazing.
and did a tour all through Costa Farms and
Oh, yeah.
and all through there were 5 different growers.
Yeah.
Got to see the tissue culture up close and
Super
It was
cool.
very cool.
Yeah.
very cool.
So it's not far off from horticulture. And, there is something to be able to relate to or meet somebody on their own turf, particularly with language. So,
Absolutely.
that's very near and dear to me. I like to see that pop up in my work now, even though you might
awesome.
not
It's
think
awesome.
it on
I mean,
paper,
like
so.
you said, our cut flowers are coming. All of our roses for Valentine's Day, all from Ecuador.
Yeah.
So we
Sure.
got it is such a big part of what we do that as far as from Latin America and you think about our labor force.
Sure.
They are living Americans, but still it's their culture. And we were talking about being from different areas where, Aaron, you and I talk about North Jersey, where North Jersey is that melting pot of different cultures. And like you're saying, Lincoln, Nebraska, the melting pot of cultures, I think like this area is certainly a melting pot for sure.
Yeah, I had earned many a credibility point on a job site because I was a landscape designer before this role, right? So to be able to speak in Spanish on a job site typically earns you quite a bit of credibility.
Really?
So
Yeah.
that was also very nice.
All right. You know what? We're going to talk about that and your work history, but we're also going to talk about the last school you attended when we come back right after these messages. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. Fertilome Succulent Potting Mix with EcoPeat is the perfect ready-to-use potting mix for all your succulents. Fertilome Succulent Potting Mix is a blend of sphagnum peat moss, perlite, and EcoPeat. EcoPeat is a natural wood fiber from peat bogs. When added to Fertilome peat moss, it produces a superior professional substrate with an exceptional ratio of air porosity and water holding capacity. Fertilome Succulent Potting Mix will ensure maximum drainage with ideal water retention. It's simply the best succulent mix on the market. Ask for Fertilome by name at your local garden center. Available at Daniel's Garden Center, Sumneytown Pike, Harleysville, Pennsylvania. Gasper's Home and Garden, 316 Tanyard Road, Richboro, PA. The Bird Sanctuary at Bloomer's Home and Garden Center is dedicated to the care and feeding of wild birds. We carry a flock of feeders like the Brome Squirrel-Proof feeder, which has a lifetime guarantee. Brome makes fantastic feeders for frustrating squirrels and feeding songbirds. Bloomer's Bird Sanctuary has a vast selection of wild bird seed, suet, seed cakes, and mealworms. We carry Lyric, Coles, C&S, Pine Tree Farms, and our own line called Bloomer's Blend. Bloomer's Blend Songbird Magnet contains premium black oil sunflower, peanut splits, millet, safflower, and tree nuts. It's sure to attract the most colorful songbirds to your yard. Bloomer's Home and Garden Center is located in Washington Township in Gloucester County, New Jersey. Visit us online at www.bloomers.com. When you come in, ask for Shirley Spurbeck, Bloomer's Wild Bird Specialist. Mention you heard it on Bloomers in the Garden Radio, and we'll give you $10 off a 20-pound bag of Bloomer's Blend Songbird Magnet Mix. You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or hear us on the radio each weekend. Every Saturday morning, Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley, first at 8 a.m. on Talk 860 WWDB and again at 9 a.m. on AM 800 WTMR. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard through the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies 1250 AM WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden. Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. I'm Len Schroeder, and we are with Seth Pearsoll, Pennsylvania Horticultural Society's creative director for the Philadelphia Flower Show. Where we left off is how you got from going to Iowa, and then you went to a different school, which is a Conway school in Massachusetts.
Yep, the Conway Design School in Massachusetts. There was a brief pit stop in Texas for a little bit. Okay. So after Iowa, I moved down to Texas. I lived in Texas, and Texas was where I had applied for the Conway Design School. When I was in Iowa on spring break, the person I was dating at the time, we went somewhere, bought a stack of magazines, gardening and landscape magazines, and read a profile about the Conway Design School. And, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think this was a thing you could do. Let's get into this. And so I applied instead of doing my finals in Iowa. I was like all in. So I worked on my application instead of doing my finals in Iowa, and went out and interviewed and got accepted, and then moved from Texas to Massachusetts for the Conway Design School.
Wow. I mean,
it's a wild time. It was a wild time.
All right. So your experience in Massachusetts, how long were you there at school? And
the program was it's an intensive 1-year course with real world projects. One year, right? So it's a little over a year. But you're there. It's kind of all in 24/7.
I mean, that's a
living,
Midwest.
Breathing. It's all over.
You are all over. I mean,
right.
So, I guess was it the garden center roots that made you go back to horticulture, or was it?
Again, I think I had always been, wherever I was, attuned to those, at the time, I would say, passive environmental factors. And I didn't know that landscape at the time was a profession that was even a thing. Okay. So if I had known back then when I was 18, perhaps I would have gone into it.
Right.
But it wasn't until I read that profile that I realized this was a profession.
Right.
I didn't even really understand what it was, but I just knew that it was placemaking and environment creation. And, I was like, all right, I think I can make something out of this here. So that's essentially how I got to Conway, was that Landscape Architecture magazine profile that I read.
Well, and so you graduate, you go, and then...
How did I get to Philadelphia?
Yeah.
So I was in a coffee shop in central Massachusetts, and I had just graduated, and my student loan money had run out. There had been a tornado. My belongings in the Midwest had been wiped out in a tornado.
Oh my gosh.
So that's important because I got a $2,300 check for those things. That was the fuel that I would live on for the next year. Wow. I had a colleague who lived in Fishtown in Philadelphia.
Okay.
He sent an email and he said, I'm traveling to Switzerland with my partner. Anybody who wants to live for free, I need somebody to house sit for a year.
Wow. Look at that.
Whoever responds first, it's yours.
You fell right into that.
I was at a coffee shop.
That's another house sitting gig. I mean,
Actually, I've got a history of house sitting
Right.
gigs. I looked at my colleague. We were working on our portfolios. I said, Doug, I'm going to email Kevin. I emailed Kevin. I'll do it. I had been to Philadelphia once. I didn't know much about it. I had only been to the airport, actually. So, I was like, great, we're going to Philadelphia. And now this was the summer of 2008. So if your recent history is good, I got to Philly in late 2008, August, late August.
Oh, boy.
Something's about to happen in September.
Oh, I remember.
So I had this shiny new master's degree, and I felt like I was on top of the world. I even had a couple interviews already set up. I had an interview with Olin, which is a big firm.
Okay.
And then the market crashed, and everything dried up, and there was no work. I thought I was going to be homeless. I had that money from the insurance, and I had no rent, so I was lucky for that reason, for a little while anyway.
I mean, real estate just disappeared, and landscape work along with it.
So I ended up going to Avant Gardens, which was based over in Kensington, and kind of a rough and tumble landscape firm. And I started off as a laborer, and I literally worked as a laborer on crews, cleaning up trash, cleaning up Ilmac sites. Very unglamorous.
But with your education, they struck gold.
Oh my gosh! At the time, there were no jobs. I was like, and I was working at J. Crew at the time, also part time, just anything.
So you look good at night.
I did look good at night. They had a great discount at the time, but
They still do.
yeah. So I started, and I got to know Philadelphia really well because we handled so many housing authority sites.
Okay.
So, and kind of all over Philadelphia. So I have, I felt like I have a pretty good knowledge of areas where a lot of people might not know off the top of their head.
And you were 3 years there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy place. And another person I was with at the time found an ad in Craigslist for Groundswell Design Group, which is an amazing firm doing amazing work. David Furaben, who is the principal of that firm, would become another sort of creative mentor, and I still think about how he, did things to this day, and that's really where things took off, because that firm, it's kind of common now, but at the time, David came from garden design, but also retail merchandising. He didn't just approach landscape through, a landscape designer. He was staging and styling spaces.
Oh, yeah, set design.
The presentations had verve. The clients loved it. There was razzle dazzle. It was, all of that extra layer of guest service and magic making.
No.
That's where I learned that. And I said, oh my
great.
gosh, that's what's going on here. And that ended up being instrumental. So
That's
great.
the fun part.
yeah. I was actually an exhibitor.
Yeah?
We exhibited at the flower show
Oh, really?
at Groundswell. So I'll get to that. I don't want to interrupt you. But
All right. And then as a creative director for Nature Associates?
Back to Nature. Yeah. So I left Groundswell to go to Back to Nature, which is kind of central North Jersey, and they had a lot of really, really big residential clients, big, deep pockets. But they also had a garden center that they were trying to do. Terrain had just come on the scene from Urban Outfitters, so a lot of people were trying to emulate this magic again, right?
You know what's ironic about that?
What's that?
Is that being in the garden center industry for generations, and then having my own for 30 years, Terrain went backwards. It looked like the garden centers looked in the 70s.
Sure.
Where we're trying to get away from stone. We're trying to get away from, and Terrain goes back to it's like, wow, I spent $350,000 on a greenhouse and pavers, and now all of a sudden they're doing it with cinder blocks again.
Right. That's so funny. Yeah.
But still, hey, it's a thing. But Central Jersey, we're talking like Colts Neck area,
like Basking
Freehold.
Ridge area.
Near
Freehold, definitely Basking Ridge area. And,
Aaron's shaking his head. Yes, he knows.
Yeah.
He knows. That's Wall Street.
Summit, we had a lot of clients in Summit, which was a big stop. A lot of Connecticut clients too.
Wow.
Like Tommy Mottola of Summit was one of our clients.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so that was big. That was that kind of project.
Those are fun.
Yeah, and then I eventually came back to PHS. I was at PHS for a while. I left PHS to go to Sparks to be a creative director at Sparks, which was not garden at all. It's pure design, experiential. It was a lot of work with like Google.
But
these other
the
big
branding
clients.
experience probably helped at PHS, I would
It
think.
did, yeah. And all these brands were finding their way to plants, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
I was bringing in massive trees
Proven winner.
for their
their brand.
stuff. And, you know, it was pretty interesting. I felt like a fish out of water, you know, and gardening and landscape is in my blood.
Right.
So I then came back to PHS, and that's where I've been since Sparks.
We're going to dig deep into the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society right after this break. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. Your next houseplant is waiting for you in Bloomers Home and Garden Center's greenhouse. Bloomers recognizes that houseplant choices are as important to your interior decorating as the fabric on your couch. The right plant, paired with the perfect container, can bring a dynamic change to your home. A houseplant brings life to your world and connects your home's interior to the greater outdoors. Even a small succulent placed on your coffee table has a way of connecting your living room to the Amazon rainforest. How about an air plant in your kitchen? Looking for an indoor flowering plant to add color to your plant palette? Bloomers has a large revolving assortment of flowering beauties. From aglaonemas to ZZ plants, Bloomers Greenhouse is stocked with your next favorite indoor plant. Bloomers carries a large selection of pottery and containers to match your home's decor and make any of your plants more beautiful. Bloomers experts can help you care for your plants and have the fertilizer, insecticides, leaf shine, and specialty soils you need to grow healthy and happy indoor plants. Visit Bloomers Home and Garden Center's greenhouse and make every room in your home a living room. Visit bloomers.com for more information. That's bloomers.com, and we'll see you in the garden.
Dreaming of a gorgeous garden? Give your azaleas, rhododendron, blueberries, and evergreens a powerful boost with the #1 acid-loving plant food, Espoma Organic Hollytone. Hollytone is a perfect blend of natural, long-lasting ingredients that nourish plants for stronger roots, faster growth, and bountiful blooms. Plus, it's easy to use and safe for people, pets, and planet. Visit espoma.com for a retailer near you and helpful gardening tips. Espoma, a natural in the garden since 1929.
You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or hear us on the radio each weekend. Every Saturday morning, Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley, first at 8 a.m. on Talk 860 WWDB and again at 9 a.m. on AM 800 WTMR. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard through the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies, 1250 a.m. WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden.
Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. We're talking with Seth Pearsoll, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society's creative director of the Philadelphia Flower Show. This year, the Flower Show is going back indoors to the Philadelphia Convention Center. Yay! For some of us.
What I like is the fact that it's back in March.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
I loved having it outside, and I've got a reason for that. But it must have been a huge decision to do that. But,
Yeah.
But so you got this title and got responsibility. Like they handed you the ball and said, here's the largest thing in the
Figure it
flower
out,
show,
kid.
horticultural event in the world.
Figure it out, kid.
Surprise!
Right.
And this was September, I guess.
September.
Maybe.
Yeah, so we were. So I had, started off as just a designer at PHS. I've been there for probably about 10 years, more or less, and worked on a bunch of different projects in the first half of my PHS chapter. Second half, which have been the last probably 4 or 5 years, solely focused on the flower show. Worked under my predecessor Sam for a long time, who had a bit more of a production and operations focus as well as creative. I focus mostly on the design, the curated aspect of it, and then the strategic direction now.
Okay. It's an amazing event. But the pressure, like you said, it's fun when it's over. Like, look what we did. It's
fun when it's over. The last 3 years, the COVID years, have been a lot of pivots. I think the first time we went, 2020, the show closed down, maybe the last big event in the United States before everything shut down. There was some uncertainty for 3 months, and then we had to basically plan a whole new outdoor show in about a 6-month time period, which is pretty massive for an event with this many stakeholders. We were outside for the second year for last year, and then, with the long lead time, knew we were going to be coming back to the March time frame, which is...
Well, when it went outside, I was like, oh, no. Because when it's in March, end of February, it's like... It announces the season, and as a businessman, and for bloomers, it starts our season off, and it's like people actually come in. Like a lot of times, you got to like pulling teeth to get people to come in. And when they announced that it was going to be in late spring, I was like, oh no, what am I gonna? How am I gonna get customers in the door? Everybody gets excited for the flower show.
Sure,
but I'll tell you, it was good. For a number of reasons, but one, I told Sam the story, and I gave him I sent Sam a long email, and that's your predecessor, about how relationships at the flower show, whether it's indoors or outdoors, are formed. TJ, you listening? You need to take your wife to the flower show, okay? Have to go to the flower show, okay?
I'll take her.
You want to be a hero husband? Go to the flower show, okay?
I'll get my tickets already.
But my wife had a very long illness with Alzheimer's, and I actually got the courage up to ask a friend of the family to enter, let's just say, a friendship in going to the flower. That was where we went. So the flower show is forever, and now we're engaged. That it's been it's a magical place no matter where you go, whether it's outside or inside.
Yeah, it
but
doesn't matter.
Julio, I know you like it inside.
I like it inside or out. Well, like you were saying, I think you ought to have both.
Sure. Yeah. I'm with you on that one, actually.
Oh yeah, all right. Because
totally.
I figured you were going to say, hey, one's enough. But in a way, I think you could pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, they do feel like two totally different events to me.
do.
We did see new demographics with the outdoor setting. We saw a lot of younger families, different format. So I love that. That was cool. It's a different kind of garden making.
Right.
Inside is really about these emotional highs. It's about saturation, color, and fragrance.
Yeah.
The end of winter, right? So they two different
different
tracks to me. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that it's a natural season for flowering material in the I'm going to call it summer, but it's really late spring show, where when you go in out of the cold, well, maybe if we ever get cold, and you go in from the cold and it's gray and everything's like, it just feels yuck.
Yeah.
And then you go into the flower show and it's like, bam, the color is incredible.
Spirit goes up,
It goes
right?
up.
Oh, it really does. It really does. That Aaron, you are going to be going for the first time ever this year, right?
Really?
Right? You're going to bring your two kids?
Absolutely.
Your kids are little.
Absolutely.
What-
I got
my
my 7-year-old and my soon-to-be 5-year-old. So,
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. They're going to have a great time.
Absolutely.
Great
An
time.
area
And you will
for
be one of those
you.
hero husbands.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to creating some magic, the electric magic. There
Yeah,
it is.
there you go.
You'll be out in Bloom City. There's a whole area designated with activities for young families.
Yeah, that's
Sit
great.
down, you'll be
Beautiful.
refreshed. Yeah, you're going to love it.
Rocking
that
my
something
Bloomers
new,
t-shirt.
Is that
That's
something
good.
new, Seth?
Yeah,
the
it is
children?
new. Something, a lesson learned from the outdoor setting. We did a ton with wayfinding and data and cohesion. And we needed, a critical mass of things for young families to do. It was spread out. It's a big show. You're on your feet forever. So to have this stuff spread out previously wasn't really doing us, wasn't as good as we could do. So we learned that in that outdoor show with this kids cocoon concept with a lot of nature-inspired engagement. So that is coming back from the outdoor show into Grand Hall area. It's like the butterfly room. It's got story time, all these other little activities that you can do with, young families. So
Great.
All right, we've got to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about more of those things and the best thing, like the do not misses of the Philadelphia Flower Show. We'll be right back right after this. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. Some of our most frequent questions revolve around organic container gardening for houseplants, annuals, and of course, vegetables. Coast of Maine's Bar Harbor Blend organic potting soil is a lightweight soil mixture made with salmon, blueberry, lobster, and other composts, as well as calcium and chitin-rich lobster shells, sphagnum peat, perlite, and kelp meal. It is a great soil. And Coast of Maine's Bar Harbor organic potting soil is rich in organic material, creating lush, disease-resistant plants that require less watering, less feeding. Its rich, dark brown color provides the perfect balance between water retention and drainage needed for healthy plants. Coast of Maine's Bar Harbor Blend organic potting soil is available at these local retailers: Barlow's, Seagirt, New Jersey; Espenshades Garden Centers and Greenhouse, Monton, Pennsylvania; Ashcombs Farm and Greenhouse, Mechanicsburg, PA.
Dreaming of a gorgeous garden? Give your azaleas, rhododendron, blueberries, and evergreens a powerful boost with the #1 acid-loving plant food, Espoma Organic Hollytone. Hollytone is a perfect blend of natural, long-lasting ingredients that nourish plants for stronger roots, faster growth, and bountiful blooms. Plus, it's easy to use and safe for people, pets, and planet. Visit espoma.com for a retailer near you and helpful gardening tips. Espoma, a natural in the garden since 1929.
You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or hear us on the radio each weekend. Every Saturday morning, Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley, first at 8 a.m. on Talk 860 WWDB and again at 9 a.m. on AM 800 WTMR. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard through the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies, 1250 a.m. WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden. Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. I'm Len, he's Julio, he's Seth, Aaron. Can't hear him, he didn't talk. Anyway, so we are talking about the Philadelphia Flower Show. And my question for Seth is, what would you tell a first-time attendee to do? And what would you say, don't miss this?
So I would say the first don't miss is a can't miss by the way that we've designed it.
Okay.
You're going to come through the doors at A Hall, and in your first experience, you're going to come through this incredible entrance garden. It's nothing like we've ever designed before. And then you're going to walk along the garden promenade. It's this giant S-curve path, It snakes through the whole convention center. You pass gardens up to 3,000 square feet down to the end, the schools, which are, 400 square feet. Mm-hmm. And there's, 30 or 40 gardens all along this walk. That's the first can't miss. The second can't miss, check out the Pico exhibit. There's a pretty cool upside-down tree concept that's going to be really exciting.
Okay.
Check out Horticultural, which is dead center for the most bizarre, strange, unusual plant material Anything and everything is in the Horticourt, one of the longest running aspects of the flower show.
Okay.
Lastly, I'll say check out Bloom
Good.
City. Go to Grand Hall. There's a ton of
Okay.
activities over there. Hit up Bloom City.
We were talking during the break, morning tours. They have a morning tour that you can go on before it opens. And anybody that's new to the flower show, I would do that just simply because you get the lay of the land without there being crowds, and you find out like how things are done. You get all like it's like going to Disney World, before it opens.
Early morning tours are kind of this little secret, not so secret yet secret. I'm totally with you. That's an amazing value. The guides are, charming and fun to talk to. They know all the little paths. They've got all these great little tips, and the pace is really good. So I hear you. It's early morning tours all the way.
Potting parties? What's a potting party?
Potting party is something that Subaru, who is one of our partners, leads with Tu Bloom, who is the florist for the Grammys. He's bold personality. He's hilarious, and you can basically learn. He'll teach you how to make a little planted container, and you get to take it home. And he's hilarious. So
sounds fun.
Do that.
Are you bringing in any European designers or anything like that?
The farthest designer this year is from Singapore.
Wow.
Harihanto Setchiawan. I met him in July.
Oh, really?
Architect turned florist. And then the farthest away landscape garden is Iftikhar Ahmed out of Portland, Oregon, who has kind of Pakistani royalty in his. He's been a gardener for many of the palace gardens over there for generations.
Wow.
So it's really in his bones through and through.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Artisan Row?
Artisan Row is out in Bloom City, and that is this hub of high-quality craft activities. We saw a lot of that in the outdoor setting. We kind of re-upped the quality kind of over the years, and there's a number of things that you can do out there and make a nice little upscale craft, a floral crown, a candle, etc.
So it's hands-on, a lot of hands-on stuff.
Hands-on stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, things to do.
That's great. And Aaron, up your alley, there's early morning, there's photography tours. So, I mean, that's
I'll be there.
Good. No kids.
No kids. Yeah, cameras everywhere. People getting really cool shots. It is kind of a show built for the photographic medium. It's just floral gorgeousness. So a lot of good shots.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Can't get here soon enough.
Yeah. It's
March
almost here.
2nd through the 12th, right?
Yes.
2nd through the 12th?
March 4th.
4th through the 12th.
Yep,
Don't
Saturday,
go early.
March 4th.
4th through the 12th.
I'll be loading in on the 2nd. Don't show up that day.
So, all right, we've got another break. We'll be right back right after this. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. The Bird Sanctuary at Bloomers Home and Garden Center is dedicated to the care and feeding of wild birds. We carry a flock of feeders like the Brome Squirrel-Proof feeder, which has a lifetime guarantee. Brome makes fantastic feeders for frustrating squirrels and feeding songbirds. Bloomers Bird Sanctuary has a vast selection of wild bird seed, suet, seed cakes, and mealworms. We carry Lyric, Coles, C&S, Pine Tree Farms, and our own line called Bloomers Blend. Bloomers Blend Songbird Magnet contains premium black oil sunflower, peanut splits, millet, safflower, and tree nuts. It's sure to attract the most colorful songbirds to your yard. Bloomers Home and Garden Center is located in Washington Township in Gloucester County, New Jersey. Visit us online at www.bloomers.com. When you come in, ask for Shirley Spurbeck, Bloomers Wild Bird Specialist. Mention you heard it on Bloomers in the Garden Radio, and we'll give you $10 off a 20-pound bag of Bloomers Blend Songbird Magnet Mix.
Bloomers in the Garden is brought to you each week by Bloomers Home and Garden Center. Bloomers is an award-winning garden center just 20 minutes from Philadelphia. Bloomers has been providing expert advice turning brown thumbs green for over 30 years. At Bloomers, we want you to ask us every question, even if you think it's silly. We share information in a friendly, non-judgmental way that is meant to teach and spread the joy of gardening. Visit Bloomers Home and Garden Center in Washington Township, Gloucester County. For directions, go to bloomers.com, and we'll see you in the garden.
You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or hear us on the radio each weekend. Every Saturday morning, Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley, first at 8 a.m. on Talk 860 WWDB and again at 9 a.m. on AM 800 WTMR. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard through the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies, 1250 a.m. WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden.
See me and Julio down by the street.
Well, we all schooled again.
Yes, we
That's
have.
good. Here's your chance. What do you want people to know?
I want people to know that this show is going to be the same but different. There is not one thing that we have not redesigned, turned on its head.
Wow.
If you haven't been, this is the year to come. There's a lot of
Right.
big changes, and this is going to be an exciting year back to come to the convention.
Now, everybody,
Yeah.
Philadelphia
Gotta
Convention
come.
Center,
you go.
again, the 4th through the 12th. You don't want to miss it. This is the event. Watched a news broadcast the other day. Super Bowl, well, we lost the Super Bowl, but at least the flower show is coming.
Going to win the flower show.
There you
We are.
go.
Win the flower show.
That's
Yes,
it.
we are.
Hey, if you want to see this, you can watch our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Bloomer's YouTube channel. Just search it on Google or one of other platforms. Julio, got anything to add?
Muchas gracias por venir.
Muchas gracias a usted, señor.
Sí, señor.
Muchísimas gracias.
Now let's see you in the garden.
Yeah.
See you in the garden.
See you in the garden.
Nos vemos en el jardín.
Yeah, very good.